Most Americans, especially those that have been sitting on the sidelines, patiently waiting for the right opportunity to buy a home, well, at least an affordable one, can feel that something isn't right with the housing market and that we've got to be headed for a crash or at the minimum, lower prices. I mean, just anything to make it easier or close to how it was prior to 2020. Just think about this. Can you imagine home prices really going up much more than the peak of median prices at $415,000? Well, the good news is I think home prices will come down, but the bad news is that it won't be anytime soon because of the conundrum high interest rates have left buyers and sellers seemingly stuck in for the next couple of years, and that's low inventory. To put it simply, sellers can't find what they want and buyers have no choice but to compete and, in my opinion, overpay for what is available. But before we take a deep look into what happens next, drop the track for the Genius Crew. What's up, Genius Crew? Welcome back and good day to the new visitors. You're tuned in to another video by me, the Market Genius. With over half a decade of selling real estate here in Metro Atlanta and even more time being a free thinker, I invite you to join the Genius Crew by subscribing, liking this video, and treating yourself to true facts when it comes to real estate, investing, and the important news that we cover here on this channel. Now, let's get to it. There are 4 things that you need to know about housing inventory over the next few years. The first thing that you have to know, or at least need to understand when it comes to housing inventory here in America over the next coming years, is that number 1, inventory is rising. Don't believe the hype. They have been talking about over the last few years that inventory continues to remain low. But here on this channel, what do? We always dive into the data and let the data speak for itself, because facts are facts and opinions are opinions. And, everybody's got an opinion and everybody doesn't have a facts. So let's take a look at what inventory is really doing in today's housing market. Yep, and to do that, as always, we are going to take a look at the data provided by the National Association of Realtors. Now, the story has been that inventory is extremely low, and it is lower than where it has been over the last, decade or so. But in terms of the last couple of years, here you can see that inventory actually reached the bottom in February of 2022. And since then, inventory has actually gone up significantly. If we take a look at how much, we're looking at about a 32% increase in the amount of inventory that's available right now compared to a couple of years ago. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're probably thinking that, okay, since we're getting more inventory, that means that more people are going to start buying. But the second thing that you need to know about inventory over the coming years is that more inventory will not necessarily create more demand for houses. Just because more homes become available, what you're going to see and what I'm going to show you is that it doesn't directly translate into more people buying houses. Now, a lot of people have been saying that, the reason why homes aren't selling is because there's nothing to buy. And that has just a tiny bit of truth to it. But the real information and the real data actually shows is that just because more homes are coming available, it doesn't mean that more people are going to buy. There are so many factors that people aren't accounting for when they're trying to figure out why housing demand is or isn't increasing. But I'm telling you, that just because we get more inventory, like we will over the next coming years, that does not mean that there are going to be more people buying. And just to back the data up, because I always like to reinforce everything that I'm telling you all. I'm not an influencer. I'm not trying to get you to influence or influence you to believe anything. I'm just here as the Market Genius, here to give you the real facts. So if we take a look, this chart that you're looking at right now is the amount of existing home sales. It doesn't take anybody to be a genius. Well, if you're watching the channel, I'm sure you're part of the Genius Crew. But if you're new and you don't understand this information, I'm sure you can see this blue line essentially dropping off of a cliff. Now, we talked about in the last step, or in the last point, that inventory is rising. The inventory actually did hit its low point in February of 2022. Now, when inventory hit its low point in February of 2022, there were 5.94 million homes being sold in that particular month. Now, let's take a look at how that has changed to reinforce the point that I'm making here, that more inventory does not necessarily translate to more homes being sold. It doesn't mean more demand. So going back to February of 2022, all the way to where we are now, we have about a 33% decrease in the amount of homes that have sold since February of 2022. So remember, we had an increase of 32 or 33% or so in terms of the amount of homes that are available for sale. But on the opposite side, we've had a 33% decrease in the amount of homes that have actually sold, which is, like I said, more inventory does not create more demand. And now for my local viewers who are watching in my local market, which is Atlanta, Georgia, if you know anybody that needs to buy or sell in Metro Atlanta, please send them my way. We would love to help them out with expert 5-star rated services. But let's take a look again here at the local market. So the peak, or should I say the bottom of low inventory here in Metro Atlanta was actually in March of 2022, when we only had 6,700 active listings. Now, fast forward to where we are today, we've gone from 6,700 all the way up to 15,000 homes actively available for sale. So that's way more than a 30% increase in the amount of homes that are available. But now let's take a look at the amount of homes that have sold. And once again, here you have it. Back in March of 2022, there were 8,500 homes sold. Fast forward to today, October, or these are the numbers that we have for October. Obviously, you're watching this video after October, but down to 5,297. Once again, a 30% decrease or so in the amount of homes sold compared to a 30% rise in inventory. More inventory does not create more demand. Now, the third thing that you need to know about the housing market moving forward with respect to housing inventory is that housing affordability should increase with more inventory. Remember, it should increase with more inventory. Housing affordability should increase with more inventory. Now, like we talked about before, we do have more inventory than we've had over the past 12 to 18 months. It's actually significantly more depending on what market you're in, but we haven't seen that create more demand. And what do you know? When we have increasing supply and lowering demand, then that should increase the affordability of homes. Now, once again, if we jump back into the charts, what we're looking at right now is called the Housing Affordability Index. And we're going to continue to use February of 2022 as a really good benchmark time for the discussion that we're having today, right? So if we go to February of 2022 and we go to today, housing affordability has dropped about 27%. And I know it's hard to quantify what that means for the average American, a drop in housing affordability. It just means that right now, it's really tough to be able to buy a home right now, given the interest rates, given the prices. Now, when we do start to see more inventory, which we have been, you're probably going to start to see housing affordability actually increase. And when it comes to the home prices, right? I know a lot of people are wondering, well, what are home prices doing? Let's take a look at home prices and see how they have responded to the rise of inventory and how they have responded to the decreasing demand along with rising inventory. So if we take a look here, this is a chart that shows the median sales price of existing homes in the United States. And one thing that I can point out to you all is we are actually seeing what's called a double top here in the market, okay? That's basically when an equity rises, hits a point twice, and then it seems like that actually acts as resistance. And in June of 2022, that peak was right at about $415,000. And when 2022 was happening, or during 2022, people were saying that like home prices are never going to go down. And what we did see in the fall of 2022 is that home prices went down significantly, peaking in June of 2022 and hitting a bottom in January of 2023, all the way down to right at about $366,000, which is about a $50,000 decrease in the median sales price. Now, Of course, if you trade or you invest, you know that like these markets, they really are kind of manipulated. And you actually saw the median home sales price creep right back up. But the good news is if you're waiting on the sidelines, it did not exceed its previous high. And what we see in June of 2023 is that median home sales prices actually peaked again at $410,000. So as you're seeing more inventory come to the market, we've also seen a slight decrease in home prices. Could this continue? We'll talk about that in the last step. But that is a little bit of relief if you've been waiting on the sidelines, waiting on something to happen so you could actually get into a home, or maybe you're sitting on the sidelines waiting to sell a home. Maybe you're waiting to sell a home and get something that's more affordable, or the area that you're looking to buy in needs to come down a little bit. So what we have seen is that although home prices haven't crashed like everybody has been talking about on YouTube just yet, we do anticipate that home affordability will start to increase as time goes on over the next coming years, because we have more inventory, we have less demand, and it looks like median home sales prices at least have hit their peak way back in 2022. And point number 4, let's talk about the crash that everybody seems to be talking about. Like, listen, I'm a YouTuber. Well, I guess I wouldn't say I'm a YouTuber, but I'm someone who produces videos on YouTube to be able to get my information out. That's why I say I'm not necessarily a YouTuber, because a YouTuber is an influencer and they really are just playing on your emotions, trying to get the clicks, trying to get paid. Obviously, I would like to get this out to as many people as possible, but my goal is to educate, not influence. Now, when it comes down to a housing crash, there are a ton of factors that need to be able to happen in order for the housing market to drop 30, 40, or 50%. And now, while those titles and those topics actually sound really great, because a lot of people love reading about fear, horror movies and all that. And oh my God, the floor is falling out, right? The house is on fire. People love to hear those stories. But my 4th point of this video is that the housing market will not crash even if inventory keeps rising at the current pace. And the truth is, despite what you hear all these other YouTubers talk about, we don't really have anything that's significantly bad or that bad that's going to cause inventory to really, really spike. The main reasons why people are talking about inventory is going to spike is because of foreclosures. And there's this other thing that we'll talk about. I got an article to show you about that. But let's talk about foreclosures. Most people right now who could even have their house foreclosed on, right? Unless you are super financially irresponsible, you have equity in your house. And before your house could actually be foreclosed on, you could simply just sell it. I have a client, or I've had clients recently that I've been working with that have had financial troubles. And you are going to hear articles about people struggling to keep up with inflation. But the thing is that when people are struggling, when people have the debt collectors calling them, and they have a home that they have $50,000, $100,000 worth of equity in, they're not going to let it foreclose. They're simply just going to sell the house and move on. And right now, because inventory is still lower than it has been previously, if you sell a house, if you market it properly, if it's in the right condition, it's probably going to sell fast. It's probably going to get a really good price. And there won't be comps to justify, what a foreclosure sales price would be. It would sell just like any other house on the market that is selling right now for a good price, and probably in a decent amount of time. And then the other thing that a lot of people are talking about right now is the silver tsunami, right? Here's this article. The silver tsunami is about to hit the housing market, but millennials and Gen Zers may not come out any better in the wash. And so for those of you who are new to the term silver tsunami, in a nutshell, basically what it means is that the baby boomers are going to start downsizing or relocating from their current homes at a faster rate. Now that I believe next year is going to be like 15 or 20,000 boomers hitting the age of 65 every day starting in January. So people are anticipating that they're going to start putting their houses on the market, and it's going to be a tsunami of inventory, which no one will be there to buy. And what they're forecasting is that it's going to severely drop home prices. Ultimately, my issue with this or this thought or this hypothesis is that a lot of the seniors that I've talked to over the last couple of months, over the last couple of years, yes, there are people that would like to sell their homes. However, the factor that people aren't thinking about is that for millennials and Gen Zers, they're going to move in with their parents, or they're still already there, or they'll move in with, Mima or Pop Pop or whatever funny name people are going by these days, because no one likes to be called grandma and grandpa anymore. But on the serious note, if there is a baby boomer that has a large house, maybe they have a 2-story home and they don't use the steps anymore, these days they're much more likely to just deal with it because they have a low mortgage payment, which they're affordable. It doesn't make sense if you're on a fixed income to go sell your house, even if you're going to make a ton of money. The average person isn't going to sell their house, move into an area that they're not familiar with, and pay double or possibly triple, depending on how long you've owned the house, what you were previously paying in your mortgage. Yes, there will be seniors that end up selling their homes, but it's not going to be like with the mainstream media or what Fortune is trying to push with this silver tsunami idea. I just don't see that happening. So ultimately, those are a couple of things that you definitely have to know about housing inventory over the next coming years. Once again, just to recap, yes, inventory is rising, but I don't see that creating more demand. I personally believe that either wages are going to have to increase, housing prices are going to have to come down significantly, or interest rates are going to have to come down, which that's going to be a topic for another video. I don't think those are going to happen either in order for that to create more demand. But if you're sitting on the sidelines, you can at least take this little bit of good news is that, housing affordability is or should increase with more inventory. So the more inventory that we get, you should see home prices stabilize or at least get more affordable compared to where they are right now. And lastly, unless something really bad happens to where we get a huge spike of inventory, not the silver tsunami, but we're really going to have to see tons of foreclosures hit the market, which, right now, given that people have so much equity in their home, that just seems like something that's just not very likely. So comment below. Let me know exactly what you think. And of course, if you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button so YouTube will show this video over the BS that the mainstream media or influencers put out. And if you want more, get more by simply subscribing.